like to call to order the Avalon City Council meeting of Tuesday, May 15th. If we would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Place your hand over your heart and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Gabby, if we could please have the roll call.
Councilmember Hernandez.
Here.
Councilmember Olson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy. Here. Mayor Marshall.
Here.
And for the record, I'd like to announce that Councilmember Marshall or Albers will not be in attendance for this meeting.
Thank you. Should we just go straight into it, or do we have to do all the other little stuff?
Anybody have any announcements? This is special study session is based on a request from Mayor Marshall and Councilmember Cassidy to come forward with a master plan, so to speak, for usage of Crescent Avenue. And council might not be aware, but city staff gets requests for booths and vendors, some permanent, some not. We get complaints on planters being placed on Crescent Avenue outside of a business, to sandwich board signs for restaurants or for whatever business it is. We are handling those, almost not on a daily, but a weekly basis. And so this is just a general starting point discussion. There's no specific application that I'll be referencing at all. It's just strictly in general on how you foresee things. I know that in the past we've had requests to place booth structures that could be picked up and moved on the pier. We've always denied those because of the view shed and direction from the Coastal Commission. We do have some spaces along Crescent Avenue, particularly as you're looking out at the ocean on the left side of the stage and behind the fountain. A few years ago, at couple summers in a row, we had maybe 3 or 4 of those booths that came out about 4 times a week and set up for a 2-month period. One was from the Conservancy. It was a touching tank, I think it was. The museum had one for some arts and crafts for children. There was a prayer booth for the community church at that time, and I can't remember what the other one was. And we've always taken the approach, if it's a temporary thing. And another one we get a lot of requests is also for some of the nonprofit organizations. If the Girl Scouts are trying to sell glow sticks for the 4th of July time period, if the request is for commercial business, we normally have denied that for the purpose that they have a business. Anyway, so I don't know where you actually really want to start. If you want to start with vendors and booths, and I also know that the chamber has been toying with the idea of approaching the city for outdoor dining spaces again because of the closure of some of the restaurants in town, thinking that additional tables would help on that. City staff has always taken the approach that that's a negative. We don't recommend that, and for the reasons being of the obstruction on the street, for the allowance of the fire truck down there. Chief Krug has weighed in on that several times in the past, so I think he is in attendance. Mm-hmm. I think he just pulled out a folder, didn't you? But so I don't know where you'd actually like to start. So since this was your request,
Right down the list.
Mayor, can we do a what I think is going to be an easy one?
You start.
One of the items of the bullet points that I'd asked that we talk about is the outdoor dining. And I know we've talked about it several times, but just wanting to see what the council's weigh in. Is anybody even interested in entertaining outdoor dining?
The only way I want to consider outdoor dining is that the city get involved by having some tables and chairs out so that if people have grab and go, they can sit downtown and eat. For example, on the left side of the stage. In terms of private business, actually setting up and doing it, no, I'm not interested at this time.
Ole?
I'll take the other side of this story. If it works from a safety point, I think it's attractive. I think it adds to the community. I think the day we set up a couple of years ago when they had the tables all the way to the end of the sidewalk, I think that was a little bit excessive because it did canyon the street a little bit. So if you could cut it back maybe just 1 or 2 tables deep, because I think it's attractive. It's attractive. Hello? No. And so that's my feeling about it. I am concerned about the safety aspect of it. I'm also concerned about some of the days of the year, like 4th of July. The parade is a big, busy day. But if we can do something like that makes sense.
And
I'm willing to-
alcohol on the street isn't a problem?
On the street or in a bar, what's the difference? I mean, it's
I'm just asking.
ABC says that you have to. It's got to be physically divided from the street, so you'd have to have something like the VPs to have the little wrought iron, the removable wrought iron fences. I don't want to have alcohol walking out of restaurants and walking across the street or something like that. I think that would be a little bit excessive.
So, I mean, I'm fully aware of Chief's position on this, that it just creates a safety hazard on really the busiest days of the year, which are the summer months. I mean, I sort of want to put this discussion to rest because it has come back 3 or 4 times in the last 4 years. So that's where I was saying I thought it might be a quick one. If and I know, Annie, I love your idea of having public seating available, like maybe some smaller size picnic tables or something in a couple of the areas. But if the council itself is not interested in outdoor dining for commercial establishments, I think we need to make that decision and then put it to rest.
So I give my 2 cents in?
Yeah,
Just
of
for that,
course.
'cause actually, I think I was part of this when it first started, all this stuff back when Wayne did it, from the public safety standpoint of view. We kicked it around for a while at the fire department, and Chief Krug will probably give you a little better answers, but one of the things that concerned me was the public safety, access to the buildings, chairs and dining and tables and stuff being outside, and at night when you pick them up, you put them inside your building. Well, everybody knows not everybody's going to stack them in a nice spot. Everybody's going to throw their stuff. They're going to get off work. We get a fire. The firemen try to get entry to the building. You got tables, you got chairs. It's a big safety factor. Not to mention the access for the vehicles and the laddering of the building and all that access. Chief, you might want to speak a little more on that. I've been out of it for too long, so. But that's just where I come from on that part of it, and I was part of that. When it first came around, I was the fire department part of it, I was the safety officer, and I didn't quite like that idea at the time.
All that is 100% completely correct. I appreciate that. It sounds like right out of the gate that we're already on the same page with regards to the outdoor dining. It was about the easiest preparation I've ever done for a council meeting because I just pulled out the folder from all the other times that this has been discussed and all the affected fire codes. And I was reminded when I pulled out some of the notes from when we talked about this back in 2014, is that we actually did a mock-up for the short period of time. We actually put tables and chairs at a couple different locations, and it went south very quickly. We actually had a situation where the business owner who had promised us the world in an emergency, I'll move them and I'll do this, argue with us to the point that we had to take firefighters to now move those tables and chairs, and deputy has to be called because he's making such a scene. It was a mess from top to bottom. A lot of the concerns we had were completely verified. So I'm pleased that we can talk about a lot of stuff, and I get it. It's a great idea. It's just the wrong location. We're already crammed for space down there, and it's at a premium, and it just affects too many issues with public safety. One of the other issues that, if I can take what Councilman Hernandez said, as one of the other issues too that comes into play is overcrowding. You have tables and chairs, and people are outside on outdoor dining tables and chairs. People are inside. The weather turns. It starts to get too hot, too cold, what have you, and those people will typically then migrate into the restaurant, or the waiters and waitresses will, well, let me move you inside, and now we have an overcrowding issue because we've taken those people that were outside and put them inside. So I'd be happy to answer if there's any other specific questions about it, but it sounds like we're on the same page right out of the gate, at least on this issue.
Good enough for me.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Does the community want to just speak to that, to the outdoor dining on the street?
Mr. Krug is correct, and other things he wants to say, but we're a tourist town, and, you know, I live near Belmont Shore, and almost every restaurant has that, and they have a highway in front of them. Okay, and I would think, as a tourist town, almost all of them have outdoor dining. And for you guys to just be negative, I think is wrong. It does promote people wanting to come to your location. And to be outdoors or to eat outdoors and relax like that. So I think somewhere there needs to be a, whether it's temporary at certain times of the year or something like that, I think you need to look at that hard because that does attract business to our city. Thank you.
Jack, I have a question. So you have numerous businesses, but are you most specifically talking about the El Galleon
Yes.
specifically?
Yeah, I can't, you know, I'm on the sidewalk at Mi Casita.
Right.
I have seats already at the Little Deli. I can't do anything at Antonio's.
Right. Well, you have
Jack's
outdoor
is,
dining at
I don't have
Antonio's.
any room there either.
Yeah.
They're right on the sidewalk. The only place is that one place, which is our show, Front Street.
Right.
So
Okay.
it seems like if there could be certain restrictions or certain tie downs and certain things that if you guys work at it, I think you could come up to a conclusion that would make him happy and help the town attract business. So
Thank you for your comments.
I'd just like to make clear that the fire department does and can routinely support events where there's tents, there's tables, and we do that. But it can't be a situation where 365 days a year, those things are in place. And then in addition, we're going to still continue to add special events. It just becomes, it becomes a math issue. There's just a limited amount of space, and more pressure is being put on that area. So we do support different events routinely. Thank you.
And from a maintenance perspective, I don't know if Bob or somebody wants to talk about that. I mean, there's, I know we have birds, and then I think, well, and then on a real hot day, people are going to say, no, now we need covers, or now we need umbrellas, or those kinds of things, and I just don't know if that then clutters as well. So, Oli, when you say you're kind of in favor, what would be your solution? And what businesses are you really talking about?
I know when I was unfortunately out of town when they did the last trial run. I mean, you look at Crescent Avenue, and I know 365 doesn't make any sense. There's days that just, Labor Day doesn't make any sense, 4th of July doesn't make any sense. But I think it is attractive to have some outdoor dining, and I think it would be good to have the restaurateurs and the fire department talk through and see if there is a compromise that makes sense, as opposed to just flat out saying no. I think I understand we have stuff going on Crescent Avenue all the time, you know, with the Spring Fest, the Fall Fest, and stuff like that. So we do work around that. I'm wondering if there's a work around for the commercial guys.
Wasn't there also an issue with some of the other merchants because the more you put the people out onto the street and they're walking down the street, then they go right past?
Yeah, and that's why I was suggesting, instead of going out, you know, 3 tables deep, you know, look at 1 or 2 tables deep. So you have a little bit of protrusion, but you don't isolate some of the business. I understand that some of the businesses were, you know, really isolated. People go down the street and they would flare out, go by the dining, and then they miss the, you know, souvenir shops and the clothing stores.
So on what other restaurants besides Jack's, the El Galleon, is to be considered?
Topless,
Topless Taco?
yeah.
About the grill?
Possible luau's.
The grill.
The grill?
The grill.
So,
The grill's
Luau
ki-
Larry's.
The grill's kind of got it, but
Right.
So it's like Groundhog Day. So if we're going to allow a restaurant to place tables and chairs outside their business, and say, let's say, for example, that next door to that business is a T-shirt shop.
Right.
Can they now put out a display for sunglasses? It's the same footprint as the tables and chairs. And if there's a business next to them that sells cigars, can they put out a cigar display stand? And it just goes on and on and on. And so the affected fire codes are: access to a public way shall not be obstructed. No person shall obstruct the width of an exit. Access shall be free from obstruction or impediments. Conditions that are hazardous to life, property, and public welfare shall not be affected. Conditions affecting firefighters and emergency responders during emergencies shall not be affected. It affects a whole variety of those public safety codes. A previous city manager, when we talked about this, said, well, I've been to Paris, and they have outdoor dining in Paris. What are they going to do there? Or what do they do there? So I did a book report about the Paris Fire Brigade and how they address those issues. And I'd be happy, I won't read my whole book report into the minutes here, but I don't understand why we continue to have this conversation that it's too small of a footprint, too small. And I would think that Parsec would, even if the city decided to go against my recommendation, which they can do, does Parsec have an interest in this? I don't know why, when this went before the Planning Commission, one of the planning commissioners said, why would we approve something that the fire department has a huge issue with, that it's going to create a public safety risk?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that was in 2014 when it punted back to the council at that time.
Right, okay. Well, do we just want to, like, have a little vote, or just kind of see how we're thinking?
From my perspective, I love the idea of outdoor dining. Most every place that you go has outdoor dining, but it is part of a bigger plan, and it is thought through in a different way. Down on 4th Street, for example, in some of the areas in Long Beach that are being revitalized, they have little pocket parks with restaurants, and they have a clear 3-4 foot sidewalk in between the restaurant and these areas, and it's really planned out. The only way that I could see we could really plan for outdoor dining is to remove the serpentine wall, which would be riotous. Other than that, the way that the whole Front Street works and how people are funneled through, without having a bigger plan of making more blocks and right-of-ways, I just don't see how we could do it. There has been the conversation about 1 or 2 bistro tables. Like, could we just put 1 or 2 bistro tables out front? But then the concern that I have is, if you do it for one, you have to allow that little bit of encroachment for everybody, regardless of whether they have a restaurant or a T-shirt stand. And the personal view that I had was, what will that create going down Front Street? So I love the idea of outdoor dining. I just don't see how it can work in the setup of what we have right now.
Mayor, would you like staff to come back with some ideas for placement of some tables on the little areas that we have that have some space?
On city property where we,
Public tables.
yes. Of course, I would love to see that. With shade as well.
If we're putting to rest the outdoor dining encroachment on Crescent, then we could find spots where the tables could be tucked.
Yeah, but not related to any specific business.
Correct.
Right.
So we did this before, though, right? We kind of put tables out before, we did all that before. correct?
I don't mean,
You mean just certain areas?
We're just-
like stated, just hypothetically,
by the plaza.
left of the stage
Yep.
Yes.
area and stuff like that?
Yeah.
I was thinking more tucked in, like over by Step Beach and across from, you mentioned this morning, Mayor, to me in the office about
Pancake
about
Cottage.
Pancake Cottage.
Yeah.
I don't know how much space is there, but
Well, we've already got benches already put up. I mean, there's already seating in that area. So,
maybe Dan could figure out a way to put some more in the parks.
Come on, Dan.
You know, the Dan benches out at the casino, Doc.
yes, and I have eaten out there, and it's quite lovely to take your lunch out there and eat.
I just think we just keep kicking this horse. But-
I know. Well, I know.
And it's been years, and we've voted on it before, so
Right.
I just see kick that can down the road again. I mean, it's up to you guys.
No, I'm not interested in private business outdoor dining at this time. But I am interested in public.
I think
public
it was of
access.
value to bring it back for discussion, just given the fact that we've lost so many restaurant seats. Would that change perspective? And also, I think it's important when you have new members of the community coming in that are interested in something, or you have new members on the city council that might have a different view. I just think it's important to have the conversation.
No, it is important, and as the chamber came back and reported at that last meeting, because he had done that survey with the businesses, there were only 12 respondents, but the percentages always look good. But they basically were saying 7 o'clock on a Saturday in July and August is their crunch time where they're going to have a hard time. But other than that, they don't seem to mind that people wait an hour to an hour and a half to get a table. Somebody said that's very common. If there's a restaurant I want to go to, I'll wait an hour and a half. I personally would not. I would walk away. But some people do that. And and then some people turn their tables over 3 and 4 times a night, where some maybe not so much. Like, I know Jack doesn't rush his people out of his restaurants. He allows them to sit and relax and enjoy. But so, I mean, if there seems to be a consensus, we don't want to talk about business outdoor dining. I don't know, we have to vote on it or just get a
No, I think we-
consensus?
I got the consensus.
Okay. And with a little bit of whatever from Oli, whatever you want to call that.
And I just wanted to, I forgot to say at the beginning that, we, for a few years there, this is when Wayne was at the chamber, we entertained the idea of the street performers that went on for a couple years, if I remember correctly. And then we came up with, which I put in your packet, a map that shows where the street performers can be. And that was pretty active there for a couple seasons. And then we haven't had anybody. We checked with the chamber and they were like, street performers, that nobody's applied for a few years.
So the balloon kid, though, has a...
Probably not.
The bubble guy?
The bubble
guy?
Nobody's gone. So I'll have to make sure code, when they see somebody out there, to ask them if they have their permit.
That is, it really is pretty cool.
There's a
Pretty cool.
I haven't seen them.
Oh my gosh. Big bubbles and little bubbles, and the kids are jumping around and popping bubbles. Parents are popping bubbles. Dogs are popping bubbles. Dogs? Wait.
Why are
How
dogs
can
on
there be
Front
dogs on Front Street?
So then also we have a map that the fire chief provided to the city staff back in 2011 that we use as our guidance when we have a lot of booth requests, and that's between Blue Water and Wrigley Stage, back behind the fountain, so we don't obstruct in the front part.
Right.
And then we also have special event application where Dan will review the application itself, and then he gets permission from the fire chief, Public Works, whoever department's going to be affected by the special event. We have encroachment permits that get filled out. Some of those are approved by, if it's very minor, I think the code says it's the city manager. If it's something of a greater encroachment, it comes to the council. And we have also temporary obstruction permits that are processed by the planning department, and that could be anything from, I'm going to block the street because I'm unloading wood for the day, or I'm going to have a barbecue in front of my house, and that came to council, and we redid our municipal code to allow for that. So the fire department would specifically know if somebody was encroaching, say, on Clarissa Street for a family barbecue. I think that's it.
So the encroachment permit, I know this came up a few times, with the signage from the businesses encroaching on city property. But to me, one of the big ones was the planters, the big planters that were out in front of the place. And then you have your awning sticking out, and then the fire truck has to swing out around instead of having their clear access as much. And I think I brought it up before, and I think we took pictures about before.
I would say, Richard, that most of those planters don't have any type of encroachment in it. There's a
Right.
lot of cleanup that I
Right.
think that staff needs to go after to do. If awnings are hanging out over the public right-of-way, we have had an incident just recently about a sign that had been placed. They had permission for the sign, but it wasn't supposed to stick out over the sidewalk, and it did, and a freight truck ended up clipping it. So,
And that
and
seems to be-
billboard signs for,
Yeah. Okay. And I know that it happens quite a bit. I mean, as soon as one person sees that it catches on, then this person puts out their sign and that sign. And
there are a
this-
couple of establishments that have received letters in the last year, and code goes to remind them once, twice, and then they get the formal letter. Yes, it's
Okay.
continuous observation and
Okay, no, that was just.
Oh,
so.
so that was just the outdoor dining space. And you touched on encroachment permits for planners, and that's just a matter of code getting involved in that process, and they're going, yes, and they already are doing that. And then encroachment permits for vendors or booths. So we want to talk about that a little bit.
Yes, and I know, Annie, you had been approached for certain businesses on the pier or temporary type things. We have had a request in the past. It was for something on the pier in different locations that definitely had been denied, and then alternate locations had come up. That one did come before the council. It's how do you want to direct staff in a different direction than how we've been handling them thus far?
Mayor?
Yes.
I think we actually can eliminate the pier, couldn't we? Just given the
Yes.
fact that no further structures can be built on the pier based on coastal commission?
As a staff member, that's how I feel, but that's,
Well, so let me
But
ask
I-
the question. You said built. So what?
No additional structures on the pier is what I remember prior harbor master
Right.
telling us
And
when
how-
we've had several vendors who've wanted to put something on the pier, that it has to go through the coastal commission. There's a view
Right.
shed issue. So I'm just saying, could we eliminate discussion of the pier in general?
Well, again, I'm just going to say, you're talking structures and whatever. What about something that goes on and off the pier every day? That's not a structure, but
I
It's,
would say it's a structure.
it would be, it still is removal of the view shed.
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, it's probably not the right way to say it, but
That's what the
impediment.
commission's issue is the
Yeah.
construction of the view shed. And also the LCP says nothing constructed on the ocean side of Crescent Avenue, and the pier is on the ocean side of Crescent Avenue. So it'd have to go to the coastal commission to get approval to be legit. Sorry.
what was that?
No,
Nothing
okay.
built on the ocean side of
Crescent
Crescent?
Avenue, yeah.
It's interesting. Jordan had a picture in his on his computer. Did you see that, Denise? I don't know. It was before you were born, but you probably know about it because your grandfather was here. They had, and you maybe have seen it, JJ, Harbor Master. There were pop-out little buildings coming off of, well, like, oh, and Bob Greenlaw's seen them as well, right, Bob? There were these little pop-out go ahead, wooden structures.
Back in the 1920s, Jay Guyan has made mention of this when he had his place. Now all it was back in the day was a box with oars, and the skiffs were down on the beach and they rowed them out. They didn't even have outboard engines, but obviously things between now and then have changed. And I mean, I'm in full support of eliminating the pier for any type of that. I am in full support because that pier is just jam packed. And if, in January you want to do it, I'll consider it. But through the summer months, that's just not I don't think that's an option. I think we really, really want to think about that. So,
Okay.
and by the way, I'm not that old.
No, but these were along Crescent Avenue. These were along Crescent Avenue, not on the pier.
Coming off the pier?
No, this was like if you're walking out on Crescent Avenue by the yacht clubs. There were, I wish we could get a picture of that. Jordan, are you out there? They were built out over the water. And so they would be like a little cabana or a little something that you could be in. So, I mean, we've had that with, and that maybe, was there a coastal commission back then?
No.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I thought it was pretty cool looking. What's that?
Santa Ana.
Probably, yes, probably. Sea level rise, here we go. Okay, so we're talking about vendors and booths. So sounds like we're saying nothing on the pier. Is that correct from council?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
As you know, we've allowed temporary booths. So I'm talking, when I say booths, I mean like the tents.
Right.
By the Wrigley stage, we've allowed them going by Bend the Seal.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
And
Over
obviously,
next to Antonio's.
and then when we have our Fall Fest and stuff along Crescent
Right.
Avenue and the Art Festival. Where'd you say, Oli?
Over next to Antonio's, that little parcel the Island Company owns. They've had, CMU was in there one year.
We have a partial area of that.
Yeah, we own part of it, the Island Company owns part of it.
Oh, Jay, thank you, Jordan. Did you hear? Did you? Oh, you came here for something else? Oh no, I was talking about that picture that you showed me on the little pop outs on Crescent Ave. Yeah. Well, they're already saying that
I know what year that was, Jordan.
it was very cool. So I heard what you just said about where those are. I guess the question is the whole thing about rollout carts. Because people say, "Hey, Annie, what about a hot dog cart out at in between the on the Mole Walkway? What about something like that? Or what about?"
Didn't there used to be a bicyclist ice cream?
One of our councilmen had.
Oh,
Oh, no, that was a pedal bike.
yeah,
That was a pedal.
a little ice cream truck. Wasn't there one of those at one point here?
Not since I've been alive. What's that?
Yeah, but he put it up the canyon.
He had the one up the canyon.
Yeah, but he had it here, but then they moved it up to Avalon Canyon. Yeah,
Right.
Huh.
And that did very well up the canyon.
it's hot up there.
I know, yeah. But it wasn't on our property, was it? It was
No.
considered Island Company or Conservancy? Did it?
And they turned, yeah.
Okay.
Mayor, I think this morning you touched upon something that made a lot of sense. It depends on what kind of atmosphere we're trying to portray in our community. Special events, when it is a festive thing, that's great to have the booths and the vendors and stuff because it's strictly a temporary, it's an event type of thing. I think that, so I guess it's up to you. Do you want that atmosphere, year-round, the summer months, our busy season from May to October?
Yeah. Well, and then you get the comments from the community. If we gave people the ability to have something like that, but not year-round, they'll say, well, I'm paying for my space on a year-round basis, and I'm paying this, and I'm paying that, and here they're getting off with such a great deal, and right on the main street of town. And so, that happened with the farmer's market, or the artisan's market.
Yes, which went to the wayside because the businesses
Right.
that pay a lot of money along Crescent Avenue or on the
Right.
side streets.
Yeah.
And we are always cognizant of that fact that the commercial businesses that do pay high prices for their rent and
Right.
that we're giving it
Right.
to other people.
The only other way is just to charge those other folks a heck of a lot of money.
And also, we've always used the guidelines also if they're soliciting for their business. So like when the Conservancy was out doing their thing, were they trying to collect money to get people to do their tours? They couldn't have brochures, any kind of thing that they could pass out, because that's solicitation to us, and that's not fair to everybody else. That'd be like, I'll just use Mr. Tusi since he's in the audience. If Jack wanted to have a table just to, hey, here's all my restaurants that you could go to, we would never allow that. Or, what was the other? Oh, the museum. They were trying to do fundraisers, but they used it as there's a museum. If you ask me where it is, here it is, and here's some stuff. It was activities for the children to use.
Right.
So.
Well, I don't seem to have a problem right at this moment with nonprofits doing those kinds of things. Or, for example, I know like Kelly likes to do art with the kids on the street. And I think that's wonderful. And I don't believe you charge them anything. You typically, yeah. And you do it under the auspices of the Art Association. I think that's a wonderful, those are wonderful activities for the families and the kids of Avalon to be able to do. I would like to see that kind of thing happen. But that's in those little pockets like we're talking about, like you would do it by the stage or wherever. Or I don't know if you even did it on Sumner Street sometimes. Oh, in front of the bank? Okay. Yeah. I should probably have you go up to the mic for the people that are in the audience. Do you mind kind of repeating yourself? I'm sorry.
Yeah, hi there. I wasn't really thinking I was going to speak today, but good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I'm interested in the study of the use of Front Street because the Art Association and I personally would like to offer a painting activity to help entertain the visitor children here. You know, a lot of the guests that come over, they unfortunately can't do some things because they've got their kids. I mean, they want to enjoy their kids and spend time with them, but at the same time, it limits them, you know, to some of the other activities that are more adult focused and, or they could, you know, they could stay longer in the bars, you know, like, so the little spot that the Art Association with Lola and I would like to do is just offer painting, you know, and donations from the people. I would hope to make a little income from my time gathered there, but offering all the supplies free. And it's in a special place where really it doesn't block people. I just think it's a different event, but I
Right.
kind of understand. And I wish, you know, I was just walking here and I just kind of found this was going on last minute. And I wish I had my proposal and things that I could offer you in details. I'm not
That's
a very
okay, but
good
you'll be
speaker,
talking to
but-
Dan about that, I imagine?
Yeah, I just started with Lola.
Okay.
You know, this is the first year I find myself that I actually have the time to dedicate it for a full summer. So, and I
okay.
really, you know, think it would be a great addition to the events and activities on Front Street,
Okay.
you know.
Great.
So, did that answer your question?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And any requests that we receive in that area in the past we push them off against the seawall instead of that area because of the owner of the restaurant that has the patio outside. If you put booths in front of it, it blocks the people that are sitting there trying to.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay. So the space could be worked out, though,
Yes.
perhaps.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. So then so again, I'm in favor of nonprofits being able to do things, but when we talk about things that are a little more commercial, like the hot dog cart or like the cotton candy machine, I think that's wonderful. However, you know, there would be a lot of flack if all of a sudden somebody pops up with that cotton candy machine. But then they have to go on private property if for example, in the Metropole, if they will allow it, and wherever, but I'm kind of rambling. Any thoughts?
I heard they tried that.
They tried that, and then the merchants in the Metropole shut them down. Yeah. So, which is a shame. It's nice to have something kind of novel, you know, and that's not done anywhere else or in town. But it sounds, well, I don't know what it sounds like. What do you think, Ollie?
I think I've been on the record generally as I don't want any commercial stuff on public property.
Okay. Except tables.
That's because we're renting the tables to them.
Well, it doesn't mean we could generate money from those little vendors as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we could.
Well, how do you decide? This is where I struggle. How do you decide who gets to be that commercial vendor?
Yeah, I don't know.
And how do you have a lottery? Do you have you get it for this 3 months, you get it for this 3 months? What I hear from members of the public is, yeah, it would be really great if we had a grand plan of what Crescent was going to be. If we be nice to have outdoor dining, it would be nice to have carts. It would be nice to have, you know, some commercial pop-up things here and there. I think we incorporate a lot of that when we do festivals, where we do have opportunities for commercial vendors to come and sell their wares. Where we do have restaurant establishments to participate and do things. So I wonder, does that encompass allowing everybody an opportunity now and then to be on Front Street and to have some visualization of their wares?
Or is it enough?
Is that enough?
Is it
That's the
enough?
question.
Maybe
Are
we
the
should do it
festivals?
more often, or maybe that might
And
help subside some of that.
yeah, and I was not in favor of the artisan market because I did feel as though that took away from the vendors who pay high dollar rent, who don't have that opportunity. You know, probably a bad example, but I'm going to use it anyway. The hardware store. We would not have been qualified to participate in the artisan market. But that doesn't seem fair that you're only allowing, picking and choosing certain people who can and can't be participative on, you know, sharing their stuff in the most high traffic part of town. And yes, I agree, the hardware store is a bad example, but it is one. We wouldn't have done it, but it's,
Right.
you know, it still is, you got to think about, is it fair to all concerned?
Right. Well, when we have Spring Fest and Fall Fest, how many businesses come forward to participate? How many restaurants come forward? Zero or none or one? Yeah. So that is an opportunity for them to come out, and they're not. Because they're busy in their restaurants and they have to bring all this extra other staff to put them out on the street. So, well, we're not sounding like we're real excited about.
Should city staff just proceed forward with reviewing the requests like we have been and denying if we deem it so? And then if somebody wants to appeal it to the city council, they can? Unless you have some other specific direction.
Cindy brought up the comment about, and then how would we do it? Would we do it by lottery, by how long, and all of that kind of stuff? I am kind of curious, but I don't really want the staff to spend a lot of time. I am kind of curious what all those other cities do. You know, I know that personally, I would like to see shade covers on Front Street a little better and that kind of thing to make it.
That's in the works.
I know. And then when you do that, so that gives you a different atmosphere already, depending on how we do it. Are they, you know, if they're colored, all of a sudden you brighten up Front Street a little bit, if that's what is decided. Then once you brighten up Front Street, you say, oh, now we could blah, blah, blah. Because if somebody's putting up a little cart, let's say, then they're going to want some kind of shade over their thing. then they're going to need a trash can, then they're, and so that little thing turns into a bigger thing. Are they going to need a table? And then what's the standard for the table to fit into our design of Front Street? I mean, it seems like it snowballs into not just being able to just put a little something there and that's it, and then what do you do about the lines, how they encroach on other people's property? Maybe you're good there, but when the lines are 30 deep, then what do you have? So, I mean, there's all of those kinds of issues that I think make it more complicated than just throwing something up.
The line's a big thing too, like at the cart place down there, that
Yeah.
crosses over when the line gets.
Didn't they put
obstructed.
corralled areas
Yeah, but you can only
behind
get
it?
so many people there. You got people waiting for carts and they're this way across. And that, we originally, when we did that, I asked them to move the building back on their property so people would stand on the property instead of the city property. But that didn't work out too well. Anyway,
Well, look at
but-
Pancake Cottage
Yeah.
on
But
a,
it's- yeah.
or Jack's Place on a Sunday morning.
But he has bench, he has a couple of benches.
But I mean, people
Yeah.
are standing.
Sure,
There's no
But
sidewalk.
there's, a lot of
on-
businesses
on-
have that same issue.
Yeah, they all have that problem. So,
But I would kind of like to talk about the vendors and stuff doing that. How many times a year can we do that? If there's opportunity, maybe Dan come back with, if there's any openings at a certain month that we could do more of, maybe. I don't know. That'd be,
well, you know how they have it. What is it? The Taste of Avalon or whatever. I mean, if businesses really want to get out there and showcase, I mean, we could make things kind of festive, like an international food day. And so different restaurants could make different kinds of food, not just Mexican and American. Somebody could make some Chinese food, please. But maybe we could, if it's themed somehow, then maybe if they really wanted to participate. But I don't know how many of them really want to do that.
Well, I think that's a really valid point that, if you look at the chamber calendar, which is, I think, the most the most extensive calendar out there that has all the events, there is a lot of opportunity for people to participate. And so choosing, hey, maybe I will participate in Spring and Fall Fest, maybe I will participate in Restaurant Week, maybe I will participate in these 6 to 8 different adventures throughout the year, that might solve
Right.
the concern of not being able to do it.
Any comments from the audience?
Just thinking off the top of my head, I understand, all the various decisions. And just to reply, I just think there's a special and unique thing to the artists and what we bring to the community. There's not space for us. We work in a very different ways in that we can't afford rent. There's a couple times a year where we get the opportunity to sell our wares. It's a hell of a lot of work that goes into setting up a tent, pulling it down for 8 hours of the possibility of generating some income. I mean, we have to keep all our supplies in some other location. We have to front all the materials, all the expense, and then we have a couple days to do it. And here we have a community that has an incredible audience that's just waiting for things to do. And it's kind of limited, to the island company and the people with all the, the big money that can make the investments, and the restaurants that can make the investments in the equipment and the space and pay the rent. And us artists who, work really hard trying to create a special and unique product that there's no opportunity for us to sell. And I just find that really frustrating. And everybody's asking, we want homemade stuff. There's a huge trend to try to buy American and things that are made here. And so many of our customers that visit the island, they want things from the island. They're tired of all just the cheap crap that's made in China. And then from store to store, it's the same. It's the same shirt with a different, palm tree. It could be Florida. It could be Roatan. It could be Catalina, and they just stamp her name. But there's a handful of incredible artists in our community that work so hard to create something from their heart that's special, and they need to earn income off of it. I mean, we need to eat, and that's what we do. So it's like it's a passionate
Right.
type of work. And it's a risk. You know, we don't make the kind of money, but we need some opportunities to share it. And I guess that's just what I'm doing. And the reason I like to be with the Art Association and work with the kids is you're just putting these little seeds. You know, you're just giving them joy. They're not really spending money or buying things. They're engaging in the experience. And that's what I think this island is all about. It's the experience. It's the action of downtown. It's the beauty. It's being out in the air. And I just think there's some space, and with, I think, a per business or a per, you know, one-on-one situation, we're looking at all the details, you know, detailed proposals, looking at the safety, looking at all the measures, that, you know, you could maybe figure something out for a short-term period over the summer. So, thank you.
Yeah, and you know, I was in favor of the artisan market, and I was very sad that the way it went by the wayside, you know, and so I'm still going to fight for the arts, music as well as the arts.
But I just want to interject that it's not that others are not fighting for the arts. It's that we're all trying to make a living too. And that's what some of the business proprietors on Front Street, some of those businesses have been in their family for 80, 90 years, and they're still trying to make ends meet too. And they're paying 3 times as much rent as somebody that's a half a block away. That's not on Front Street. That, you know, they're still. So I just want to say that it's unfair to think that anybody's not fighting for the arts, because there's, you know, there is opportunities out there for the arts and for artisan markets. It just needs to be fair to all concerned.
Okay. So where did we end up on this one? Oh, Dan. Yeah. Are you sore, Dan?
No.
Oh.
He never admitted anyway.
No, thank you. It may not be an overly popular discussion, but we're working with City Fabric right now for our recreation master plan, and it's maybe something to discuss reaching out to them for a fee to come in and just do a once-over on Front Street. Understand the dining may not be part of it, but instead of us just plopping in some tables and chairs and these little niches, that there's a kind of some thought into some overall design and some standards there. And that could incorporate the shades that we're talking about. It could incorporate the garbage cans that we're talking about, just as another kind of set of eyes. You brought up the dining in Long Beach. They were responsible for some of those little pop-out dining areas in the pocket parks. That's kind of their niche market. So they might be worth, I could put together just a quick spec and bring it to a June meeting and come up with a cost and what it might look like for some renderings and some, like I said, some design standards for a couple of those things.
What do you think? Okay.
Great.
Sounds great.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I can add to the discussion. You know, I came from communities of Chico, San Luis Obispo. I watched those communities have no outdoor dining or activities that were activating those downtowns. And I watched what happened when we did activate. So what you need to take a look at is areas that don't have those activities that you can add to. And try to bring those people, some of those areas even to the side, and activate those areas and bring the people away from some of the Front Street and try to make it all kind of a balance, so you can help that out. So that's where I would start looking at it. Try to make sure that we're activating those areas that maybe are not bringing the highest, best use to. Make sure that when you're looking at those areas is that we try to use those areas at their highest and best use at different times of the day. And sometimes those can be flexible areas. And that's where we get the most economic vitality out of it.
Are you talking just about like the main street of town?
No.
Because
Go down.
I'm thinking here.
You can go anywhere in this town, but I mean, as we come up the other streets, Sumner,
Right.
Catalina, what can we do? Some of those really need some help.
Right.
And we can start activating those streets. People are not out there living on those streets like they are at Front Street. We're already getting that because we have the visitors coming.
Right.
So what do we do with some of those areas that we can bring some of those visitors now up those streets, even up to, as you'll see tonight with the Five Corner of what we're trying to do, get that sense of place and make it so that the whole community is like that.
Right.
And we can really serve those visitors that way. And you'll see from the team we've got together, we also have another team with that, also RRM, a landscape architect, is on our team tonight. And they do that same kind of work and try to make that complete street and that very livable environment that we're trying to make for the visitors.
Great, thank you. I look forward to this evening. So then, does anybody else want to speak? So then again, Denise, repeat what you said about, do you just want us to continue doing it the way we're doing it? Is that basically what you said?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Which is on
We'll
a case-by-case
review
basis.
Case by case of what they're proposing, the duration of time, placement, et cetera. And then if they are not happy with the denial, if that's what we do, then they can appeal it to the council.
Okay, okay.
Is there a fee associated with the appeal?
Yes, there is. It's like $300 and something. That's a standard appeal fee in our fee schedule.
Thank you.
Okay, other areas to discuss?
Well, we could talk about
Some of those other future items
Yeah.
to discuss?
The unloading and loading,
dogs, bicycles,
commercial loading.
smoking. We have rules for all those, but
Mm-hmm.
you see what's happening.
So let's talk about
Richard, Councilmember Hernandez just brought to my attention last week a sign that had been placed in the Catalina Express window as well as Vaughn, so I didn't come with that folder. So I want to do some investigation, and I just saw an ad today that one of the airlines, if you have an emotional support dog, that they're going to start denying those, but if it's a service animal, that's different. So because there is a difference between those, I think that the emotional support, maybe those are the ones that we could not allow on Front Street if it's for a CNI or a service animal. So I need to check with our legal team to see what we can do.
I think we're still just in the same situation that we're in now. The Sheriff's Department is really not able to do anything because it's just ends up every single person they come across is an argument. And the issue is the owners. And I'm not shy to say it. People abuse the system and it ruins it for everyone else because they want to have their animals with them. And I understand that. You know, if I had, at times where I have had a pet, I've wanted to take my pet everywhere too. But it's unfortunate that the system is so taken advantage of. And, we're setting our Sheriff's Department up for failure in the fact that if we say you can have a service animal, but you can't have a support animal. So now, the laws, you can only ask one question. And, it's just a fight.
Yeah.
It's really just a fight. And it's frustrating to many members of our community that a lot of the folks that abuse the system of animals on Front Street is our locals. And then we have our own members of our community who are doing this. And so then the visitors are saying, well, why should I follow rules when, you're not? And it's so hard. I mean, either we don't allow animals on Front Street or we do. But I think it's unfair to set the Sheriff's Department up for determining which animal is okay to be there and which one's not.
And after 5 o'clock, you could see it. As soon as code gets off, when code gets off and everybody's down on Front Street with their dog. To me, and again, it's a legal thing with Scott. my take on it is just if your dog's down there and you don't have the paperwork and they cite you, you go to court, you bring the paperwork, you prove that the dog is, and we tear up the ticket, and now we know who's right and who's wrong. But again, you can't ask certain questions, you can't do this. But to me, that would be a good fix for it. You write them up, they get a ticket, you bring your paperwork, now we know your dog's the correct dog that should be down there, and we rip up your ticket, no cost. Then you can break it down to hopefully get familiar with who has the right dog down there.
Well, why don't we just set up dog routes? Just like we have truck routes. If you have a dog, this is.
Well, actually, we do, Annie.
What's that?
Actually, we do
You
already.
can't go Front Street.
Oh, that is like saying we have a dog route, right?
Like if you were coming in off the boats, you go to the dinghy dock, you're supposed to carry, or
Right.
it's not, if it's a larger dog, it has to come straight down off the pier, down Catalina. It can't go along Crescent Avenue.
So I mean, because with a dog route or whatever our current rule is, then you're not discriminating one against the other. It's just cut and dry. I mean,
Until they go down Front Street.
right. So if we have, I mean, it's not like we're saying you can't have your dog on Catalina Island. We're just saying you can't have it on Front Street. So why can't we? Can we be just that strict and just cut out the service dog, emotional dog?
I
blah,
don't
blah.
think so.
Not the service
The
dog.
service
I don't
dog
think so.
particularly, no.
Well, the service dog, you don't have to prove anything. I say I have a service dog and I don't have to pay to put it on the airplane. All I have to say it's a service dog. And
Now they're asking you to bring letters.
Yeah, they're asking. I think
Letters
that's what all
from
this
the vet and the trainers.
I think-
new verbiage is about.
I think
Oh,
you're
good.
right. Yeah.
okay, well, if that's the case, then the law enforcement, so maybe we should just follow whatever these folks are
There's new
doing.
verbiage out, I guess, that everybody's using.
That's
We
what I
need to
wanna
look into
check
that.
on.
Okay, so I mean, if we, okay.
And put a big sign up in front, yeah. But I'd like to get back to the commercial vehicles unloading and loading. There's specific times, correct?
There
That
are
they're
specific
supposed to go
times.
down there and unload and unload?
And locations, yes.
Yeah, and
I know
locations.
Bob Greenlaw has a lot of thoughts on this. Oh, he left.
It's just a
Oh,
time.
back here.
But,
That- That's probably more of our transportation vehicle one, because I know we definitely want to discuss that. We did a real quick discussion in a staff meeting, his chief left too, about putting the permanent, the real heavy ones, Richard,
yeah.
that we used to screw
Right,
in
right.
and they, or lift out,
Right, right.
Or they
to go back to
down.
Yeah,
those,
they
that
do.
the trucks
Yeah.
just can't.
they can't go knock them
No.
over.
It-
Well,
it's-
what gets me, well, the reason I want to bring it up is, okay, I see the commercial and they're doing their best to be out of the way and moving over. There's certain times they'd be there. They're supposed to be there. I see a lot of private vehicles going in there, and just pull up, unload their stuff, leave it, go for a walk, blah, blah, blah. Carts going in there, pulling stuff up. That kind of gets me. And they seem to be abusing that too, to a point.
Mr.
In
Greenlaw
my
really
opinion.
has issues, not just with the abuse of that, but what it's doing to the pavers, because that was the
Right,
pedestrian
right, exactly.
walkways. If we were to not allow, when you're over town, in Long
You
Beach,
can't.
I notice it all the time, that these delivery trucks are parked and they're on the dollies walking blocks to the
Yeah.
to the establishment. And one of the ideas was below 3rd Street, that it is not for private use in the mornings for quite a few of the hours of the day. It would be all just commercial delivery trucks to
Yeah.
prevent the usage on bricks.
Makes sense.
Because the heaviest area is on Catalina.
What happens on here comes
Oh,
Bob
I'm
Greenlaw.
back.
He must have heard, his ears were ringing. So what happens on a day when the barge comes in late and people, I don't know how often that happens. The barge comes in late because of weather and then, so they're behind by 4 or 5 hours.
Few and far between.
Okay.
Incidental. There is a time where that does happen, but it is few and far between.
Then I would think with
Maybe in
an
the
exception,
wintertime.
you could make
There would be an
I would think
exception.
you could make an exception
Yeah.
to that. I would think.
Did you hear, well, you couldn't have heard what we were talking about, but we,
Yeah.
We're just talking about
I mean,
unloading and loading.
One of the, and I know you're going to want to speak to this too, but one of the issues I have is several people who just pull up in front of Antonio's little pizza kitchen and they just park right there in the red. And, you know, they'll run into Leo's or they'll run down to Lloyd's real quick or something. And, you know, that corner or that little turnaround area is already so unbelievably congested because people try to go through the alleyway to make the shortcut to go down, to continue on to the other side of town. So I think you're right that, you know, there is an ADA accessible spot in front of the arcade on Sumner Avenue, and I know that there's been a little bit of abuse in that in the past too, where somebody's parked there all day. But that little corner there with the red, and then you've got all the trucks just pulling in and parking. It's just like a major SIG alert.
So one of the things that I would like to bring forward as we go into this next budget is working on a transportation plan. And so that'll be, you know, access throughout the whole community, but we should be focusing on Front Street. How our deliveries are made, we want to make sure that our commercial businesses are successful. We want to make sure that people that need accessibility can get to wherever they're at, and we want to make sure that there's a good visitor experience. So that being said, is how do we make that all happen and not just make it a free-for-all? Because right now it seems like access is happening and it's anybody the way they want to do it, instead of us having the regulation saying, basically there is no access unless we give it to you by a permit, and so that we're managing that. And by doing that, we need to manage so that we're not destroying the pavers, but we're also making it a better visitor experience and a safer visitor experience. And then also what you see is those delineators that we have there. I think we've been through almost 60 of those in a year. Wow. And when those break, people fall on them sometimes. Yeah. And then that's when we get the claims. So that's been a big concern, and we've tried to open up a little bit wider. We've pushed them back so that we have a delivery zone. So we have some work there, but I think the first thing is that we need to make sure that you only are doing it for necessity. It's not for convenience. Right. Okay? And so as a business tells you, I need to do this, well, it's common sense that a plumber needs to get to the front of a business if he's working and he needs his tools right there. So some type of mechanic that needs to be there. But somebody just driving there because it's the shortest route, or that they don't want to have to carry something for, you know, on a hand truck for a short distance. Because in other cities, like we're in San Luis Obispo, we were in Chico, there was a delivery zone at the end of the block. You park at the end of the block, and then you move your goods there. So you may not be able to get there right to the front. Okay, and it depends on the type of business and what activities they're doing. Maybe there's something for that business that they need to get, that delivery truck needs to get there because it's something that's heavy and they need to be in front. But the rest of their delivery trucks don't need to be there. It's something that's light they can carry in. Right. So we need to figure what I think that's another whole piece, you know, another half an hour, and we need to make some exhibits. We need to bring to you, this is what's actually happening. Mm-hmm. And give you some examples and let the data kind of drive it, and then do that outreach with the businesses. What do you need? What is essential? What you have to make that argument that it's a necessity for you. And so I think we have some work to do ahead. But if we don't, we're going to see those trip and fall claims come from those delineators. We're going to see our visitor experience not being seen what it needs to be. Okay. And then also as we move back, there's some things that we need to do in our parking session down those streets because there's new regulations coming for on-street ADA parking that the cities will have to address. So that'll be throughout our community, and we should do that kind of community-wide when we discuss that. Okay.
Great, thank you. I noticed Chris Wilhelm walked in. Was there any item specific that you wanted to address or talk to? Okay, all right. Thank you for coming.
We could look at this as we could adjourn now because we hit upon the three that were really for today.
Right,
And the other
right.
ones were for future.
Right.
Because we have a long evening.
Yes, so the dogs we will discuss as we get more definition, better definition, right? And then the the other thing will come from Bob Greenlaw. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, so, okay, and the tents and shade structures on the beach or downtown will come in under Dan, correct? With, if we go with City Fabric, or Bob Greenlaw was talking about R&M or whatever, so that would kind of be included in that,
That's
I would
the shade
imagine.
structures.
Yes, that would be part of that, I would think, right? Okay.
The tents on the beach was just how our municipal code, I don't believe, allows those. And, you know, sometimes in the summer, we do see people actually setting up a tent on the beach.
Oh, that's
to
what
go
you're
inside,
talking
kinda
about,
like-
tents on the beach.
Yeah.
Okay.
People get very
Okay.
upset,
Okay.
and rightly so.
Where they have like the big 10-foot pop-up tents and,
Yes.
yeah.
With the, yeah, it's like a cabana, whatever, okay. Oh, so that was different. Okay, well, any further comments?
One of the items that we internally at staff that we were talking about was electrical outlets. We are working on the potential upgrade of the electric panel that feeds the downtown waterfront, and that will have to be done in phases because you know, it's a pretty big effort. But right now we're looking at the potential to power the stage for, you know, a concert event, you know, because right now there's been some times where we weren't able to power that to the level we need, and they bring in some temporary power source. So we want to make sure that that's easy to be able to power that up, but also something that's safe, meets code, because right now, as we dug into that, it's lacking all of those things. And why we're doing that, because we'll have to get another service from SCE. We'll also look at all those electrical outlets and make sure that everything has a GFI, that it will serve all the functions that we have for whatever activity that would feed all the planners or wherever we need those outlets. So that, you know, once we're out there maybe digging up some pavers to run a new conduit run, that we're catching everything that we need for the future. So we'll bring that to council with that effort that we're trying to do.
And when you talk about that, then that brings up lighting. And
And that should be, as you even talking with the landscape architect, should be lighting the plan, you know, but those are the kind of things you're bringing in to a plan, you lay out,
Okay.
you know, what are the potential pieces of this? And then, yeah, in our lighting, and even in the Serpentine Wall, we're working on that with maintenance staff right now, and trying to get it where we have some LED lighting that would fit all those little niches there. And you know, it just takes a beating being there at the coast and with the materials that, you know, it's all corroded. And so we need to, we're working on upgrading that so that we do have that lighting, but making sure that we still keep that dark sky. We're trying to, every time, you know, even as we're approaching issues on the stairs on Crescent, you know, is how do we keep it so that we're illuminating the stairs, but not taking away, you know, that view at night that people like that dark sky.
Right. And then that brings up Edison, because I understand they may, hopefully there's good communication with Edison on that, because I understand that their shepherd lights, or whoever they are, might be going away soon, and to have some input into what they're thinking so that it fits into a design that doesn't mess with the dark sky, but also has a feel for Avalon instead of some big concrete.
So we're making an effort right now to look at an energy audit for, you know, for the street lights on the island. That would then, hopefully that would lead to maybe looking at all the lights.
Right.
You know, we're saying we're deficient in this, but now we need to be able to select a light. Okay, what is the group of lighting that we would select for walkways, for stairs,
Right.
for
Good.
streets?
Good.
And then that leads to a master plan for lighting. So as we start doing projects, we can start putting those
Right.
in, but then they are also energy efficient.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
So I just want to add two more comments before we, it sounds like we're moving towards wrapping up. I would like to discuss music and concerts down in town. And also, Bob, you brought up lighting and landscape architect, lighting in general to if we could keep it on the forefront about the city park, Machine Gun Park, because that tends to be a location for interesting activity at nighttime once it's dark. So I just want to keep that on the forefront of our mind. I know, Dan, we've talked about that a little bit, but music and concerts on Front Street, when we're talking about what we want to be in the future, because I do love the idea of having music. I think the occasional concert on Front Street is valuable. Our guests love it. That survey was done by the Chamber and by Exceptional Music, and it was extremely positive, all the survey results. But there's a point where after 6 months, every Saturday night, having music is where you're holed up in your house because you don't necessarily want to hear live music every Saturday night. So I just think we need to plan out how often are we going to have live music that radiates all across town, and how, I know that the Chamber has concerts, but then you've got all the other establishments that are doing live music. And, where I know specifically where I'm at and where a couple people on Whitley are, it is, you can hear 3 different sets of music in any given Saturday night.
I guess that's where we differ. I'm trying to find a way to have more music, like on Wednesday nights and maybe a little earlier, and showcase our local musicians, because they're all wanting to be able to play. So I guess maybe, I know Dan has spoken to and has a list of all the musicians, and maybe it's not just on Front Street, but maybe we have it here.
Right.
In People's Park, or maybe
Right.
we find out at the mall. Maybe we find other places to have the music. But I would really like to showcase our locals.
And I think there's definitely a way for that. But again, I don't think that we're abiding by noise ordinances, and I don't think that we're, looking at the big picture of it.
Right.
So we could have acoustic music 7 nights a week on the stage, and that would be grand, having, just like we had musicians that used to come as street performers and play during the day. Our visitors loved that.
Right.
But there's having live music every single night of the week is a much.
Yeah. Okay. No further business?
I just want to announce our next study session for budget and fee schedule is on Tuesday, June 5th, starting at 9 a.m., and we'll be stopping at 12.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Have a good lunch, Tony.